Good day everyone, Complaining Gamer here. I would like to discuss the evolution of the standard Xbox One controller. The arsenal I have at hand consists of the original Xbox One controller that comes with the console, the Blue Camo Midnight Forces edition, then the standard black controller with the re-engineered 3.5mm jack and new shoulder buttons. And finally, the latest iteration in the series that comes with the Xbox One S controller. Before we start, as a short disclaimer, I would like to say that if you see any remnants of a meal gone past or any grease, please excuse me. I did my best to clean these controllers, but we shall see. Okay, starting with the original controller that came with the console. So, first of all, in my personal opinion, the Xbox controller is simply the best controller on the market. Now, one of the immediate issues with this controller was the fact that if you wanted to connect a headset, you needed an adapter. So you needed this adapter, which connects into the bottom of the controller. For me, that was the biggest flaw with the original controller. They should have gone with a 3.5mm jack straight away. But of course, that doesn't really relate to function very much. This controller came with very good analog sticks, a solid D-pad, good responsive buttons, a perfect amount of resistance in the triggers, and very clicky shoulder buttons. Aesthetically, I think this design looks very appealing. But once you add the adapter, it becomes a little bit cumbersome. That is not particularly attractive. And then you have to add a cable, which also had another adapter to then connect your headset. Of course, if your headset had the 3.5mm jack, you could go directly into the controller. But for example, if you used a Astro mix amp, you were going to need another cable adapter. Of course, on the market today, Astros are some of the most popular headsets. And here is the cable that comes with it. Okay, if you have an Astro headset, this end is 3.5mm and this end is 2.5 because of course the Astro mix amp, especially the older editions, the cable input for the microphone is at 2.5mm. And one thing I must say, these cables were literally impossible to buy other than getting the official adapter set. Moving on, I saw that Xbox were releasing a designer set. There was a green camo, a blue camo, and a black and white camo, I believe. But they came out at different times. The blue one especially appealed to me because, of course, you know, I love the color blue. I think it looks very, very good. However, at night, this actually just looks black. So right now, in a very strong artificial lamp, the blue is quite prevalent. But at night, you can't see a single thing. This whole controller just looks black. So the design scheme is completely lost. Like the controller that comes with the console, it still maintains the clicky shoulder buttons that have a slightly limited area that you can press. Now, this was one of the common complaints from people, was that you couldn't press the shoulder buttons here at the top, which is true. But for me personally, I never had any issue. I think the D-pad is rock solid. And when you buy a brand new controller, the thumbsticks are also very good. However, they do wear out over time. So the resistance in them becomes less. And of course, the thumbsticks themselves do wear down. Now, if you have a Torx 8 screwdriver, you can actually open the controller and perform a degree of maintenance, from cleaning to changing anything that you want to change within the controller. If you have a controller which is misbehaving, sticky buttons, unreactive thumbsticks, I highly suggest that you go and buy a Torx 8 screwdriver, open the controller and give it a good clean with just a mixture of water, of course, not on the main board, just on the plastic, and compressed air. You might be surprised the wonders it will do. So aesthetically, I think this controller looks extremely good. Everything is the same, basically. Same buttons, same thumbsticks, same D-pad, same shoulder buttons, same triggers. And unfortunately, once again, it needs the chat adapter. This thing I hate. The interesting thing with the camo series, of course, is that especially on the black and white one, they did actually introduce the 3.5mm jack, which actually did annoy me because it was quite soon after I bought this controller. However, I do think that this one still looks the best. Next up, we have the slightly redesigned controller, where some of the complaints that people had were they really wanted, guess what, the 3.5mm jack, and they had an issue with the shoulder buttons. Now, I have never had any issue with any button on these controllers for me. I didn't mind that you couldn't necessarily press the shoulder buttons at the very, very top. It was never an issue for me. So what did they do? They introduced the 3.5mm jack, which was a very good change, and they made the shoulder buttons easier to press. I actually don't like that change. So if we look at the original controller, okay, the shoulder buttons are very, very clicky. They feel extremely sturdy and give a nice tactile response. The redesign actually feels quite mushy. When the shoulder button is traveling, it doesn't give that same solid tactile feel. It just feels very soft at all points. So from the very top all the way to the edges, it does not give a nice, snappy, sharp feeling. I've actually had issues with the redesigned shoulder buttons where, imagine you're playing a game, so you have the controller and you flick this part of your index finger to press the shoulder button. That was very effective on the original design. But on this kind of mushy, unclear redesign, it does not always work. So I had a few issues with that. Okay, moving on to the Xbox One S controller, or you could just say the newest controller, which is white. One of the first obvious things that you'll realize, of course, is the aesthetic. It's a very attractive controller. And this controller does sport the 3.5mm jack, the redesigned shoulder buttons, but it also has a few extra features. Now it's Bluetooth. What does that mean? That means that you can connect it to your PC and another device which accepts Bluetooth, such as your telephone. So you can use this for mobile gaming and PC gaming. As far as I know, this does not work on the PS4. One of the interesting things that the camera seems to show is that the Xbox home button seems to have a bit of a blue hue to it. Now, I can say that in person, it does not look as blue as that. It looks a bit more grey. But that's an interesting design choice, and I personally think it looks very, very nice. So what do we have? We have the 3.5mm jack, the redesigned shoulder buttons, the new Bluetooth, and on the back, the camera will not pick this up. There is a texture that goes across the whole grip. So all the way from here to here, you have texture. Now, a good description that I saw someone use is that it feels like very, very soft sandpaper. And I would say that's quite an accurate description. Does it assist in overall grip? I would probably say a little bit. So, for example, let's take the original console controller. Here we go. And here is the Xbox One S controller. Now, if we rub our finger across the main body of the original controller, there is a slightly gloss feel to it. So, of course, it has a matte element, but it does feel a bit smoother. Now, the Xbox One S controller, or the latest iteration we can say, actually feels a bit more textured all over. Now, of course, there isn't actual texture. It just feels like there's a bit more resistance across the whole controller. If we compare the body to the Midnight Forces, of course, the Midnight Forces is painted, so it's naturally going to feel smoother and glossier. So, with the Xbox S, you have quite a strong grip across the whole controller because both the body and the actual intended grip adds to overall control. Another design change from the original controller, of course, as you can see here, we have the front panel, which is separated from the home button. On the Xbox One S controller, they made it all one piece. Now, this is also the design that comes with the Xbox Design Lab customization. So this is the base for your own personal designs. It will have the 3.5mm jack, the newer shoulder buttons, the textured grip, and the Bluetooth. So it's basically a copy of this controller, but with your own colors. Now, at the minute, that particular service does not impress me greatly because the colors and options are limited. You cannot just put any image that you want onto the controller. Maybe in the future that will change. And also, the service is currently very limited. I think it's just Canada and America. So not only can you not fully customize the controller, it's also limited geographically. One thing that I noticed when handling the newest controller is the shoulder buttons on this one are a little bit different. Now let me try and explain that. Let me take the original Xbox One controller. So this is the one that came with the console. Okay, we have a very solid, tactile, responsive feel in the shoulder buttons. Absolutely rock solid, very, very satisfying to press. Moving on to the redesign with the 3.5mm jack. We have that slightly mushy travel within the shoulder button. Almost as if it doesn't just have one stage, it has a few mini stages. The responsiveness of this particular design is not nice at all. It feels too soft. So let's imagine if the original Xbox One controller and the redesign had a baby. Okay, so these two shoulder buttons are producing some kind of demon spawn. So you have the very tactile, strong clicky response with the slightly mushy response here. What is born from that? In my opinion, this shoulder button is what's born from that. It's slightly less clicky than the original controller, but it's not as mushy as the redesign. In my opinion, it's perfectly balanced in the middle. It feels absolutely excellent. This could just be in my mind, but one thing I should say is that the overall feel of the newest controller, particularly the body, the plastic feels a little bit cheaper in my opinion. Some people have said it feels of a higher quality. Another huge benefit of this controller having Bluetooth, of course, is the fact that you can connect it to your PC, which means you don't need this adapter. Now, this is the USB adapter which you currently need to actually connect a controller to your PC. So having just this to do everything is perfect. If you look at it this way, this one controller has everything. If we go to some of the other designs, for example, the original, you're going to need the controller. You're going to need the adapter. If you have Astros, you're going to need the adapter cable. If you want to connect it to a PC, you're going to need the USB adapter. It's just a complete mess because what you can do, you can throw all that away and just job's done. All in all, I do need more time with this controller, especially playtime, testing it on a PC, testing the Bluetooth, testing the range, the texture grip and everything. But for now, I would say that this has to be the controller to buy. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it for now, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like, a thumbs up, and a subscription because I'm always producing more and more content every day, trying to keep it nice and interesting for you. Thank you very much, all the best, and I'll see you next time.